We're just a few days away from Mayweather Paul from Miami. Floyd returns to the ring to take on YouTube sensation Logan inside Hard Rock Stadium in South Florida. It's 44 years old versus 26 years old. There's about a 50-pound weight discrepancy in favor of the YouTuber. The build up to this fight increased exponentially when viral video of younger brother Jake got the gotcha hat moment from Floyd during their promotional tour, and it went viral. So this fight will consist of 8 3-minute rounds. Paul, 18 years younger, does have a 4-inch height advantage. When it's all said and done, though, that weight discrepancy might only be around 30 pounds. Mayweather with a weight limit of 160, Paul with 190, and that fight will take place on Showtime Boxing pay-per-view. Speaking of Showtime, we got the guys from Morning Combat, Brian Campbell and Luke Thomas here, and we're going to break this thing down, guys. But first, overall general thoughts for this fight. BC, I'll start with you.
Yeah, look, this is a spectacle, right? It's an event. It's got a circus and carnival feel to it for sure. Will it be a fight at the end of the day? We're certainly going to have to find that out once they touch gloves. You saw the big size advantage. You see the youth advantage. Will that mean nothing when a YouTuber steps in there against one of the greatest boxers of all time and the best of this era? Either way, people are interested, whether it's from a pro wrestling point of view or whether it's the hope that either one gets knocked out, because both are polarizing in their own way. It all comes together to form a weird soup of a car wreck entertainment that you simply just can't miss.
Yeah, I've never been hit in the head repeatedly with an axe handle, so I'm not entirely certain what the appeal of this fight is. If I had to guess, what I would guess is that this is something kind of like you heard BC mention it. This is not quite pro wrestling because it is a real sanctioned exhibition bout, not a full bout, but an exhibition bout. And so for that reason, it's not pro wrestling, but you're not really trying to figure out who's the best, right? Even if two teams play in the NBA, they're playing for a certain record to either get into the playoffs or just to have a better season, where winning is, the ultimate determinant. And so there's a better question of like, who is the better two teams or who's the better two players? That's really not involved here. And in fact, if you look at the commentary crew, it's half sports and then half entertainment, right? So it's this weird mix. It's kind of like pro wrestling, kind of not. People are interested in celebrity culture. This is the maximization of it. Here we go.
Here we go. And to your point, Luke, and I'll throw this back to you here, there's the old adage of a puncher's chance. What chance do we give Logan, who is taller, weighs more, that if he somehow hits it flush on Mayweather, that he's got a shot here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what to say. Good luck, because you're going to need it. I mean, listen, the world's best boxers. Think about his last 10 fights from Mayweather, from Berto, Cotto, and the Maidana fights and everything else. Maybe Maidana, you could say this. Dude, the world's best boxers don't hit Floyd clean. Now, granted, he's been retired for some time, and listen, Logan Paul's a big, strong kid. Anyone who's covered combat sports long enough can tell you that, listen, you can be a black belt. If a white belt has your back and they have the choke in fully, they're going to get the choke. I mean, you have to kind of respect it. So in that sense, yes, if he lands a punch, maybe all bets are off. But the idea that he's going to land enough or even once fully clean, I am very skeptical that will happen.
BC, give me the Mayweather perspective of this fight. Obviously, taking this on, the name recognition, the perfect professional record. Why is Floyd doing this, and what do you anticipate he'll have this weekend?
Tommy, can I do it with a hand signal? Can I give you the money sign?
Let's go. Show it to us. Let's get back. Yeah.
I mean, show him the money, not me, Tommy T. Look, here's the deal. Floyd Mayweather has compared this akin to a legalized bank robbery, or at least a televised one. It's part of the motivation 4 years ago that led Floyd out of retirement to box Conor McGregor, the former UFC champion, which at least, let's say from a competitive standpoint, you could talk yourself into something. This one is much wider from a competitive balance, despite the betting odds being only 6-1 in terms of Paul being a betting underdog. But look, let's talk about Floyd's motivation here. He calls himself TBE, the best ever. That's never really been about who's the best boxer. To Floyd, being a boxer is not just the perfection he's achieved inside the ring, but it's the full culmination of the money character he's built, putting on the biggest events, making the biggest paychecks, becoming a disruptor of the headlines. Once again, Floyd has found himself a perfect foil. Once it was McGregor. A couple years back, it was a Japanese kickboxer sensation, Tenshin Nasukawa, which brought Floyd millions for a trip to Japan. Now it's on a much bigger and brighter stage. tapping into a whole different potential fan base that the 44-year-old new granddad Mayweather has never touched before. TikTokers, anime, YouTube, video games, you name it. The Pauls have dominated that sphere. For Floyd, it's like, I get to be in there against a novice, and you're going to pay me handsomely for it. We know Floyd's motivations. The only real question, going back to the question about competitiveness here and the chance of an upset, Father Time is undefeated, right? As is Floyd. Father Time's got a longer track record of being undefeated. Will it catch up to Floyd overnight? Eventually it will. Is Logan Paul the opponent that can bring that, out of Floyd and expose age? It's hard to think so, just one fight into his professional career and just 3 years into putting on the gloves.
All right, Luke, I want to ask you something I asked BC yesterday when this became official. It was sort of the Paul effect, both Logan and Jake. How do you describe what they've kind of built up to this point? It's gained in popularity. I don't dare use the word prestige, but what do you think about what they're doing right now?
This is the part of the equation where you have to really kind of tip your hat a little bit, actually. I mean, listen, I'm not a consumer of the Paul brothers content. I don't watch Impulsive, which is Logan Paul's podcast, and Jake Paul, when he throws water balloons at Dylan Dennis outside of the Mulca Studios in Santa Monica, okay, that's fun, but I don't really consume his content either. But I mean, just take a step back for a second. You've got every single MMA fighter and their brother talking about Jake Paul. You've got commentators leaving their desk position like Daniel Cormier to go address him when he's in the audience. And now he's taking on former UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley. And his brother, Logan Paul, he's probably going to get waxed to an extraordinary degree. They're going to find him in Madame Tussauds when this is all over. But he has an exhibition bout against Floyd Mayweather. So take a step back a second. These guys are in exhibition bouts against Tyron Woodley, one of the best UFC welterweight champions ever, and Floyd Mayweather. I mean, you can say what you want about the rules, and I will. You can say what you want about how it's kind of silly, and it is. But these two guys have absolutely elevated themselves as far as they could possibly go. BC and I have talked about this on Morning Combat. They took all of the lessons of Kimbo Slice and used that YouTube popularity to boost themselves. But what they did quite wisely is they became their own managers. They have agents, they have managers. But what I mean to say is Kimbo handed all that off to Gary Shaw, and then other people ran with it. He let the matchmakers deal with it. He let the people who had big say what they wanted over his career. The Paul brothers don't do that. They've taken everything into their own hands, and look at how far they've elevated themselves. We're talking about them here on a Wednesday morning. We're going to be talking about them for the next week. The whole sports world will. You have to kind of tip your hat to it.
So it's an undercard that we have this weekend that also includes Chad Ochocinco that'll be on Saturday's fight card. We've got time for about one more, so I'm going to get thoughts from both of you. BC, I'll start with you first. Down the road, we're going to get Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley also on Showtime. Give me the state of boxing right now. What's boxing thinking? I mean, Jim Lampley just signed on with Triller, giving it some validity and credibility. What's boxers, promoters like Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya thinking right now?
That's a great question. And look, the response I'm getting from everyone in the traditional old school boxing sphere, from media to fans to trainers to promoters, is, who let these guys in, right? What is going on here? These are YouTubers. These are gamers. Why are they coming in and demanding the big bucks and demanding the attention? This is bad for the sport, on and on. But let's really look at what this is. This is a bubble. This current run of celebrity boxing, of promotion entertainment, it'll burst eventually. But until it does, hey, old boxing, the old guard, embrace it. Rising tides can raise all ships. This puts more focus on the sport of boxing. It brings more non-traditional eyes and a younger audience to it. Is Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul, your grandfather's version of boxing? No, it doesn't mean it's going to last forever. While the bubble is large, everybody can eat too and get a little bit of a bite. So while old boxing is pushing it backwards, you do have to realize it's not a bad deal in the end for this old guy. Are you going to put lipstick on the pig? That is my favorite sport, boxing. You can only shine it up too much. You're telling me there's no room for this carnival sphere? I beg to differ, Tommy.
Yeah, I would say that people are overstating how bad this is for boxing. I see a lot of people being like, what does this mean for boxing? Isn't this bad for boxing? Well, Sort of, but not in the way that people say. People are making it out to be that this is what's taken over and that this is the future and that any notion of integrity is lost. Not really. I mean, if you look at the way Showtime is presenting this, they announced their calendar well before this had ever come around. This is all that they want to do. Sorry, their boxing business is their core business. This is just some ancillary thing that they can add to the schedule, but they didn't replace it. You got to understand something. I lived through the big Japanese boom in the early 2000s where they did the exact same thing in MMA, where they do an Akibono, this crazy sumo wrestler fighting Hoist Gracie, and every other carnival freak show you can imagine. What happened was the major organization doing that, K1, that kind of became their product, and that was a problem because, as BC rightly noted, the bubble burst. But as long as you kind of put it to the side and it's not the core of what you do, ride it out while it's here, make money if you can, have a good time, because it's not going to be here very long. And as long as your core business is not attached to that, you're going to be just fine.
All right, we're running out of time. BC, got one more for you quickly, 30 seconds or less. Will this force promoters to do more cross-promotion fights?
In the short term, everyone's always going to follow the trends and try to get some money. But to Luke's point, long term, it's going to go back to business as usual at the end of the day. Expect some fun on Sunday night. Expect a big Floyd Mayweather knockout. Maybe expect some pro wrestling theatrics with Jake getting in the ring. You also can buckle up and have a good time and realize it's sports. It's also entertainment.
Luke, final word?
Yeah, last thing I'd say on this is the one criticism you can make of boxing from this whole experience is that maybe the fights that people really want to pay money to see between two competitive boxers don't come around long enough. That is a bit of a problem. So you end up seeing these weird celebrity fights that get made. So I think if there's one moment of reflection, it should be on that. Make the big fights. Is it going to lead to cross-promotion? I have my doubts, but you can tell that there's consumer demand for it as long as someone's really willing to answer that call.
We saw Ramirez-Taylor. It might not have happened if Taylor didn't jump on with Bob Arum at Top Rank there a little bit over a year ago. All right, thanks to the Morning Combat guys, Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell. Guys, thank you very much. Check out their podcast, the Daily MMA and Boxing Podcast. It's all things combat sports. The last episode before the one that drops today, the Memorial Day mailbag, favorite performance in a loss, MMA coaches and top TV shows. Make sure you download and follow those guys today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.